Welcome to Talking Pest Management. This interview already happened in German, but we're going to do it in English again for you because it's very important. Normally in Talking Pest Management, we talk to pest managers, we talk to people that produce products for our industry, we talk to clients that have a pest control operator in place, but very seldom, or never yet, we talk to somebody that objectively audits the companies, hence a standard. So today, with no other than Thomas Auer. Thomas is auditor and responsible for AIB, the American Institute of Baking, which you all know because it's one of the most influential standards in our game. So enjoy. Okay, Thomas, welcome to Talking Pest Management again, this time in English.
Okay, thanks. Welcome.
So Thomas, where are you based right now?
I'm at home, so just preparing my holidays. So after this interview, I have some office work to do, and then I will go on holiday for 2 weeks. So yeah, that's nice. The last work before. So.
Yeah, you deserve it. I mean, everybody that knows you and works with you knows that you travel a lot because you're responsible for quite a bit within AIB. By the way, we're talking about AIB today. So what people are gonna be expecting? We're talking about the history. We're talking about future outlooks, about daily doings and stuff that we can improve in the work with AIB, with your customers and pest controllers. So that's what's to be expected from today. But tell us something about you, your history. How did you become an AIB employee and auditor?
Okay, yeah, a bit of a funny story. So I worked before nearly 10 years for a large multinational dairy company, and in my last position I was coordinating the AIB audits for this company, and I was based in France, and when I would like to go back to Germany, because my girlfriend and now my wife was living still in Germany, and after 2.5 years doing each weekend the trip, we have been a bit upset with that, and I said to my AIB contact, the general manager, I said, "Hey, do you have still a job in Germany? Do you search somebody?" And he said, "Yes, when can you start? And is it a problem for your boss?" And I said, "No, I spoke with my boss, he's fine." So, okay, then let's join. Then I had another short interview in the US with some managers from AIB, but was, let's say, a quite easygoing hiring process.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're actively auditing. You're in the sites. You are responsible for Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and more?
Yeah, it's... To say responsible, that's always a bit perhaps too much, but I'm doing audits in Germany, Switzerland, Austria, but also quite a lot in France. I have been last week in Poland. I'm doing one client, a dedicated client. I do it globally, his facilities. So I'm going before Corona or COVID, I went about 5-6 times a year to the US, once to Australia per year. So yeah, working more or less globally, but with a focus on Europe, that's for sure.
So you've been working for how long with AIB?
I am now my 14th year with AIB, so quite a while.
Crazy, yeah.
Perhaps I say something about AIB because I know a lot of clients in Germany or Europe, they say, "Who the hell is that?" We have never heard about that company. So yeah, AIB standard before for American Institute of Baking, but since 2 years we say we are AIB. It's not an abbreviation anymore. But I always say where we are coming from. It was the baking industry. And yeah, we have been founded 100 years ago, 1919 in the US, as a technological service provider for the food industry and baking industry. And we trained the bakers in the US and so on. And these clients asked then 1930, 1940, when the FDA started to do inspections, how can we get prepared for such inspections? And then we started the audit services and helping the food industry to improve. And we created our own standard. And it's not a GFSI recognized standard, but that's a decision why it's not done. Because we are allowed to consult, and because it's our own standard. So we are giving the companies some recommendations what they can do, compared to a GFSI recognized standard like IFSB or C, where you're not allowed to do that. That's the main difference. And only AIB can do AIB audit. So you can't get an AIB audit from another company. That's very specific. Yeah, that's a bit the history. And now we are more than 100 auditors auditing in about 120 countries over the globe, helping the food industry to improve, to ensure safe and healthy food. And that's our mission, what we have.
So what do you guess, how many customers, producers, logistic companies, etc., do you visit per year, roughly?
Roughly, I'm doing about 140 audit days a year. And if you say an average, around about 2 days. So let's say between 70 and 80 facilities a year, what I'm auditing. So quite a bit. And it's started, I did raspberry crop in Serbia, till packaging suppliers, till carton suppliers, so food contact materials, beverage industry, dairy industry, chocolate industry. So quite baking for sure, still a part, distribution center. So very broad. A part where we are not auditing so much is the meat industry, but otherwise we are really doing the entire food chain. So from fork to farm to fork part.
So how does a typical audit look like when you're in a, let's say, a big logistics site or a packaging company with food contact? You pop up at the site at 8 in the morning, and you have a little greeting. And how do things progress from there on?
Okay, so let's perhaps start a bit before. So there are 3 different ways for the audit. It can be fully announced to corporate, or unannounced. That's not AIB who takes the decision, that's the client. They say we want to have unannounced audits or announced to corporate. So imagine it's an unannounced audit, then I show up and nobody knows the date. I show up in the morning and I say, hi, it's Thomas Auer from AIB. I'm here for the unannounced inspection. Then we do a short greeting opening meeting, but really briefly, especially in an unannounced audit, because the target is to get as quick as possible or as soon as possible on in the production area. During an announced audit, we take a bit more time for the opening meeting, where we explain the standard, where we say about something about the rating and so on. And then we go in the shop floor, and it's a deep inspection in the shop floor. And everybody who knows AIB, we have our flashlights, our spatula and mirrors, to go in the corners, to go on the knees, to crawl under a line and so on. It's really a detailed inspection. Therefore, normally we don't use the word audit. We say it's an inspection, because it's really searching the problems to help the facility to improve. And I think that's the mixture. Yeah, they get a score, they get a result from the audit, but they get also the help to improve. And it's really important for us to say, we want to show you where you have problems and work on them before you come to a recall situation or crisis situation. That's the point where we are really focused on.
Mm-hmm. So if I am producing, let's say, chips or anything, and I want to sell my product to somebody that probably in most of the cases requires me to have myself audited via AIB. Is that mostly the case? Like, I sell to somebody and that somebody puts pressure on me to,
There are all different possibilities. So we have companies, they do it really voluntarily. It's more to get prepared for their GFSI audit. In that way. So the result stays really, I would say, confidential inside the company. Then we have clients where they have a large multinational and they say, we request that you're having an AIB certificate. So that's more or less, that's the 2 main drivers to why our clients are searching for AIB audits.
So within the last years that you've done your job, did something change from the perception? I mean, did people always greet you with open arms and say, welcome, Thomas, and we're glad you're here? I mean, obviously you're helping them, but criticism is not easily taken by anybody. So how does that feel?
Honestly, I think in most of the companies, you're welcome. And I did this week an audit and I failed the facility. So we found an issue and still the audit went well and in a good atmosphere. And they say, okay, Thomas, you showed us where we have a weakness we need to improve. Yep. And that's not in all cases the point, but that's I would say a very common thing. We are going very often to facilities where they have already been on a certain level because they are supplying to a multinational. They are on an excellent level on BRC IFS audits, and they search for more detailed physical inspections, perhaps. So that's the point. So it's very seldom that I would say, we are going really to the basic facilities, but also that happens. I always say it's like I show you only a mirror. I give you a mirror and I show you what's happening, and I highlight that. And normally it's well received. For sure, some facilities are happy if you leave and if the audit is done.
For some people,
it's always a stress situation for them.
Yeah, I think it's probably always a cultural thing, right? I mean, in the end, it's good for you. And if you are, adult enough to understand that you are just helping, it does help a lot for everybody, for, for the producer and also for the consumer in the end. So, yeah.
Exactly. But this is the point where people need to get this mindset that, okay, we fail perhaps the audit. And very often I have in the opening meeting at the end, the CEO says, have a good audit. And I ask them, hey, what does it mean, a good audit? And normally the answer is a high score. And I said to them, perhaps we have an unsatisfactory, and the conclusion of the audit will be, it was the best audit ever, or best inspection ever, because we found an issue which avoids that you have a crisis situation in the future. And then it wasn't a successful audit. I said it would be a bad audit if you say you get a high score, everybody is happy, and 2 weeks later they have to do a recall because you missed something or there is a point which was not seen. And when you tell them that, they say, okay, you're right. That's would be better to figure that out today instead of having that later.
So let's start from the very beginning. Your point system, how is it set together, and how much is accounting for pest control with the 200 points? I know a lot of people want to find out why is that pest control is so important within AIB, which obviously is one of the biggest topics. Okay.
So it's a short question, but the answer will be a long answer. No problem. So our standard is split up in 5 chapters, starting with operational methods and personal practices. Here we are having a look on reception controls, metal detection, then storage of products, and also the personal handling. So rules about hygiene, hand washing, health questions. So what do you do if you have an injury to take a bandage and so on? That's the first chapter. The second chapter is maintenance for food safety. So here we are speaking about the maintenance of equipment, but also maintaining the building, the infrastructure, the outside areas to an appropriate level. So here we have a look about vegetation along the building, quite important for pest control. Building proving so that the building is well closed. So that's very important. Then the third is short but important, is cleaning practices. And then the fourth is integrated pest management, so pest control. And this is very important, and you see it's its own chapter compared to other standard where it's only a subpart. And the last is the adequacy of the prerequisite and food safety programs. You see quite a long name. It took me a while to get it in that speed. pronounced. So that's the program chapter, where we have a look on HACCP, on food safety, on self-inspections, and so on. And for coming back to your question about the noting or the scoring, so each of the chapter has a worth of 200 points. So that's the full possible range, what gives at the end the 1,000 points. And then we have different levels what we are rating. So the first is minor issues, where we don't have a risk for contamination, where we say there's no potential for contamination. Then the next level is improvement needed, with a potential for a contamination. The next is serious, with a significant risk for the contamination. And the last is the unsatisfactory, with an imminent food safety risk. And the rating system is based on 1 minor means 195, 2 minus 190, 3 minus 185, 4 and more 180. If I say 1, it doesn't mean one observation. It means 1 point in the standard is rated on that. So, for example, in maintenance, you have a question about floor, and the floor point can only be rated once, even if you have multiple floor problems.
Gotcha.
And it's always these 5-point increments what are used for the scoring. So if some people start to negotiate, do we get 1 point more? I say no, 1 point I can't give you, because it's always 5-point increments. So after the minor, we came to the improvement needed, starting with 175, 170, 165, 160, followed by the serious with the significant risk from 155, 150, 145, 140. And then the unsatisfactory starting with 135, and there is theoretically no end. But if you have a look in maintenance, for example, the standard has the 23 points, so you can have theoretically 23 times an unsatisfactory would mean 23 times minus 5 points. So we are not using the entire level from 0 to 1,000, but only a part of it. But yeah, that's the scoring system.
So you can't score negative.
No, you can't score negative. And the worst I had was something a little bit lower than 500, but this was really the worst facility I've ever seen, with 22 unsatisfactory or something like that. Now, but the point is, always the most severe is responsible for the scoring. So imagine we have in pest control 2 minors, so we say 190. Then, we find another improvement needed, so it's automatically jumping to 175. And then we find a serious, so it's 155. And at the end, it's always the most severe who is responsible for the score. And that's important also for the corrective actions, because that means if you don't eliminate the unsatisfactory or the serious, but you do all the minors and improvement needed, you eliminate them, the score will stay the same. That's quite important. And this helps because a lot of other standards you lose per questions, let's say 4 points or whatever percentage. And this makes it quite tough if you can have one observation and you get a quite bad score, which puts more pressure on the senior management. There are some special rules about the scoring. The last chapter, the program chapter, can never be the best and so on. But honestly, these are the details for later, let's say, for the advanced. But here it's more to get a bit these wordings, and people have heard about an unsatisfactory or a serious, that they know what does it mean.
Interesting. So you have quite a high percentage of points for integrated pest management. But that's not new. AIB did this for ages. So pest control always was imminent for AIB. How come, and what's the daily business with pest control at AIB sites, and how did it evolve since you started working?
Okay, I think the basis was coming a bit from the US because, we know in the southern part of the US they have quite a lot of pests and problems with pests, and therefore that was an own chapter. And I think it's good that it's an own chapter because quite often it's subcontracted. It's a contractor who is doing that. We pay them more or less the best nothing, and he's doing the service, and we don't care about it. And that's very often the case in the first audit if you come and do that, or a training inspection. But it's an important part, and the facility needs to have people with a certain knowledge. And this is also part of our standard, that there need to be internally trained people. They don't need to be a licensed pest controller, but they need to understand basic parts of pest control. And
pest savvy, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's important for us because even in Europe, you find issues with pests, and you have rodents, you have insects, perhaps not exactly the same like in the US, but flower beetle activity in a flour mill or in a bakery is nothing what is completely unusual, and you can say, oh, no, never happened in our area. So it's a good point, and helps the people to work on this subject and to take it seriously and to work on that.
A little word on your chapter is called Integrated Pest Management for a reason. I mean, and you also started talking about the farm to fork strategy. And I think IPM and integrated pest management is in 2021 more vital and more, common topic than ever before. The classic pyramid, the IPM pyramid with cultural, biological, mechanical, etc., means to solve the problem until the very peak, the chemical one, which obviously pest controllers are professional enough to be able to use or make use of. Is the IPM pyramid and the layering and the, let's say, with the base part, with the cultural and hygienical measurements to be taken before all the rest, is this something that you see out there? Is this still being performed, or is it sometimes a bit, forgotten and people are only using the chemical solutions as a standard?
No. It's one of our parts. So we say one of the starting point is to do a good self-inspection. So monthly to do an inspection of the entire facility to identify weaknesses in cleaning and pest control. And from that starting, you say, okay, we have identified there is cleaning issues or pest issues related with cleaning. And very often it's that. And we push the companies to start here, to work on cleaning, to work on building proofing, because if the building is not pest proof, we all know you can do a lot and they will come back because they're good and or is a warm shelter, and that's important for them. Mm-hmm. But that's a very important part for us, the cleaning perspective, and not only saying we are fogging, and we see that more and more, especially in Europe, that people go away from we fog every month or every 6 weeks to we clean deeply, we do perhaps spot treatments, but the big fumigation it's getting less and less. And if it's done, it needs to be in line with very good cleaning and so on to reduce or to ensure the efficiency of the products. And we are not against the chemics. It's important to use them in line with label directions. That's really important, and to use them clever as a help to against the insects or pests. But it's only the last bit before you need always to do a good cleaning. Absolutely. Because chemical without cleaning is useless.
I think historically it's very interesting to us because as also with a big network, we see that IPM and the layers of IPM get more awareness in the last 2 or 3 years. which we find great because obviously it's like taking out a fire, but not completely, always letting it burn a little bit. Basically IPM is the means of taking the problem by its roots, and sanitization or cultural things, and like the bushes in front of a building, etc. Proofing the building, as you said, are the key areas where you can start and find a solution to a problem forever, basically, if you do it right. I mean, if we're talking about a big factory, what is forever? But I have really surveyed that in the last couple of years there has been a trend towards this, and I think it's a clever trend because in the end, everything is getting greener with the EU sporting towards the Green Deal. So I think it will be clever to enforce all the powers that we as a pest control industry have to ensure that, even the chemics, the last resort basically, is not be, taken off us or something in the near future. But very interesting. And I think, IPM is in focus for a rightful reason.
Yeah. For example, we are using a method, it's called ICE. It's I standing for identification, C for controlling, and E for eliminating. Mm-hmm. So we say we identify the problem. So insect activity, bad cleaning, not proofed building. Yeah. Then it's the controlling. What can we do? We can clean, we can proof the building and so on. And then the elimination we are using traps and perhaps some insecticides. A point I'd like also to mention here is, because that's very specific from AIB, is that we are not allowing toxic bait inside the building. That's a very unique thing. And very often people say, AIB don't like toxic because toxic and food doesn't work together. That's in a certain way correct, but it's only the second level. The first point is, why don't we like it? Because the rodent is gnawing on the toxic bait, is eating it, and is dying somewhere. And it's somewhere. Because if the building is pest-proof, they don't find the way out, so they will die and decompose. And the worst, I say always, is if they die on a pallet of beverages, which is brought directly into the supermarket, and you're going in the evening to grab the last bag, and you say, "Oop, my God, there's a dead rodent." That might end in a big nightmare. And that's the reason why we don't like that. So we recommend mechanical traps, so seesaw traps, snap traps, whatever, live traps, what are available on the market to work against them. You could also use non-toxic bait, but we still don't recommend it because it's again the point. You saw some gnawings and then you need to get the mouse back to that place. And I always say I'm the big fan of the mechanical snap traps. They are coming, they get a nice welcome hit on the shoulder, and that's it. And they are here and not somewhere else. And that's really the important point and big advantage, that you don't need to do other treatments or searching for them again. For sure, if you have found one, you need to find where it came in. Are there more? You increase perhaps your traps and so on. But still, the one you had, it's here, and it's not. You need to say, I saw some gnawings. Now let's search for it.
Totally agreed. And we are not talking about if you have a huge infestation. You have different problems. You need to take care of the infestations, proofing, chemical things, everything. Trapping, everything. But we are talking about, let's say, 80 to 90% of the companies which have their pest issues under control. So we are talking about a rodent here and there once a year.
It's the monitoring.
Monitoring, exactly. And you can monitor perfectly with a trap. Obviously, you need to make sure that it's certified, in a professional scheme, which some traps already are. And you need to make sure that there are daily controls minimum for live catch traps, even higher than once per day. So this is a huge challenge, which obviously can be, with digital helpers, that can be a solution. I remember very clearly, Oliver in 2005 and 6, he had an AIB audit with his company, a service company here in Germany, and we had an AIB auditor, and we had toxins in the site in 2004-5, and he said, no more, get rid of them. And we installed traps, and that was the beginning of our thinking. We could. Trapping is combined with a big effort, daily controls, and we could easily connect them with the internet, etc. And that was our thinking, this is going to be huge. It's obviously been a bit slower, but still the thinking is quite up to date, and more people do it. So what is your current view of this process? Does it help? Is it a good means?
Yeah, so I see more and more these mechanical traps with digital connections. So I don't want to say it's everywhere, but it's more and more. No, because you have a 24/7 control. You don't need an employee who walks around, and when he's on holiday, you need somebody else, and so on. And then he's forgetting a trap, and so on. So this is more the trend, what's clearly visible, and they are working quite efficiently. And as you know, there are now also traps available for the outside areas, mechanical traps. And recently I was in a facility and I asked them, and they say, yeah, that's working. So we catch regularly a rodent with them. But it's a reliable method. Still some pest control company don't believe on that. They still want to stick on their toxic because they think that's the best. But I think it's a cultural thing. If you have been a pest controller for 30 years and always using toxic, it's a mindset changing thing that is good. And I think it's a little bit like you drove a gasoline car or benzene car forever, and now you should drive a hybrid or electric car. It's not the easiest way, and you need to try it. You need to get your experience and so on, and then you get convinced, and that's the point, I think, and that's also your side from Futura, where you can help people and say, we can give you figures, what are experiences of some pest control companies that they did a good job, and they had a good success with that.
Absolutely, exactly that. I mean, the biggest success, I think, is always when people adapt it naturally. You don't need to force it onto them by a law or anything, as you never did for your customers. You said rightfully yourself, choose whatever products you want, but these are more and more becoming a trend, and rightfully so, because people see the results. They save costs. They have, instead of I control the box once per day, it's controlled every literal second, which is 100,000 something percent in efficiency increase, which is crazy. You wouldn't get such an increase in efficiency of control of something that's very imminent to be controlled in the very second, like a pest, anywhere else. So I'm very proud, actually, that this idea, which is over 15 years old now, becomes a trend. But I also see that, and we also see and can confirm that it's becoming a trend, but also with monitoring, which I find really, really interesting, which is also a new trend, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years, that people begin to step back, also because of regulations and law, obviously, to step back from toxins for monitoring and go towards, let's say, synthetic monitoring products and something, or traps, which I find always the best thing, to use a trap instantly. Maybe in addition, a synthetic monitoring attractant or something. But I find that's an interesting trend, because especially in outdoor areas where toxins have been used, if you were to use, let's say, a raptor perch with a predator bird against the rats and mice, predator birds can eat a lot of mice there and decrease the population measurably, even if you install these perches. So this, combined with the traps, is a supernatural and partially digital program, which I find is becoming quite a cool trend. And I gotta say, I stand behind it. I think it's a cool way of leveraging pest control and bringing it to the next era, really, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is the future for AIB? I'm talking to a couple of other people in other standards like IFS, etc. And they're also, I see a big change there. The biggest trends are, like in every other industry, sustainability and maybe digitization. Is it the same for AIB?
Yeah, I would say it's important to have efficient measures to control the rodents or the pests. And to find a way which is sustainable is for sure a thing, because that's important for the client, and to find always this solution to be green but efficient. So this is the compromise. Recently I was in a facility, and that's the point. They had some vegetation along the building, and they said, but because it's defined as a natural protective area, and this is the point where we need to find the good compromise to say, I agree, we should protect our environment, but let's try to keep at least a 50 centimeter space vegetation free, that you can, as pest controller, you can control it, that you have a visibility, and to find this compromise, and to discuss that with the green people from other organizations, and they say, everything needs to be protected environment, but it's also, we need to protect our food, and that's a very important point, because nobody wants to have rodent droppings and so on, and with all the risks
and bacteria spread by rodents or insects onto your food or baby food or medicine. People always also ask, or not oftentimes, but I do get asked how I get along with being in pest control and killing animals, because mice are cute, etc., and which is true. And I would never go into the woods or into the rainforest and kill an animal just for fun. It is just, as you said, Thomas, if they're in a bakery where I give my baby food, I give, my grandmother medicine, I don't want a rodent. I love all animals, to be honest, but we can't accept cockroaches or, rodent droppings, as you said, with hantavirus and many other bacteria and viruses in this very site. So in this site, we need to take care of it.
Exactly. In this site and around the site, because...
And around the site,
Because we all know there are openings in the building. You need to get material in and out, even if it's the perfect pest-proof building. You have times where you get deliveries where there might be a chance something could enter. But we need to reduce that to a controlled risk. And therefore, it's important that around the building, there is a limited pressure on the building that they're coming. And that's the objective, for safe food.
Yeah. So how's your work? You're actually working in a triangle. Yeah. So you're working for a client, let's say a producer or something. But then a subcontractor, a pest controller, does the pest work, monitoring, control, management, documentation. How does the pest controller greet you? Again, the example, does he greet you with open arms? What is the situation, or is there any situation at all?
It's the first point is our client is our key contact. So if the pest control company is coming, I have that regularly, that they're coming and showing the system or presenting, or also from a training perspective, everything is fine. But I can't tell him, you need to do that and that, because I have no business relation with him. I explain him, why do we request an insurance certificate, a label of the product, the safety data sheets, and to do certain things in a certain way. What's the reasoning behind the standard? But our key contact is our client. They need to make sure that the pest controller is following these guidelines. So, but you had all circumstances. I remember once I was doing the first audit, and the pest controller was with me, or he was always some steps behind me, and I heard him, "Oh, what a nonsense!" No.
Really?
Yeah. He was always not very happy with my comments and so on. But he changed because the client imposed him, or our client from both sides. He said. He imposed them to install mechanical traps and so on. And I think it was 2 years later, he was again with me in the audit, and I said, what do you think about the mechanical traps? Are they working now? Oh, yeah, they are good. But you need a client who takes also care about them, who to be careful during cleaning that you don't hit them and so on. And I said, yeah, because I remember you were not so happy with my comments. And he got a bit of red face and smile. And yeah, but it's that way. I think what I said before, if you work for a long time period in a certain way, and now a young auditor, or at that time I was quite young, auditor is coming and is saying, oh yeah, you should do it differently. That's not the nicest part, but I think you need to convince them, and we train them, and we are doing also training for pest control companies. So I do that regularly for some, half a day, a training, a full day, where we explain our standard, where we show what is important for us, what they can do. Also, we are learning a bit what are new trends in your sector. So that's fine. And we do the same for companies. So we can do, we are doing customized training. So we can
even digitally.
Even digitally, remotely. So we start from, we can do a pest control training. We can do a hygiene training. We do food defense training. We do so many trainings. And it's really up to the client to define what they want to have. I do very often one-day training sessions with starting about explaining the standard shortly, then showing a lot of pictures, mostly bad ones. And then I go with groups in the facility, always 5-6 people, inspecting 2 areas. And each area I ask 2 groups to go there, so that afterwards you can compare the pictures, because each group is taking pictures and we have a look on them. Because I say that's your micro fine tuning, so you can see what has the other group seen. Have they identified the same issues, others? Do I need to let's say sharpen my antennas more in another direction because I missed that? And I never get it to somebody personally and say, hey, you need to do that. No, it's much more, think for yourself. What did you find where you need to improve? And that works quite perfectly, and I get very good feedback about that. And people like that if you discuss that and what they find. And it makes fun from my side, and it's also normally a bit of fun for the facility people to have a dedicated day to do that, because a lot of times they speak about hygiene, food safety, pest control, and so on. But it's this okay, today that's our target and nothing else, and that makes it very successful.
And I can truly recommend it. I mean, as you know, our sister company, we're working with you for ages, for years. Every year we've seen each other and did a training together, mostly if we managed to find the time. And in the end, obviously, at some time of day, you're going to find a spot where you didn't do everything perfect. But listen, we're all adults. We're here to do something good for, for human health and consumer health. So these blind spots to check them and to spot them is our job and our duty. So criticism is never to be taken easy, but I guess it's a win-win because it makes everybody better in the end. So I absolutely can recommend the trainings that you perform to everybody that's watching. Another question that I do have in terms of practical work with a pest control company. I still remember times when my parents worked in the industry. So my father always did the documentation on paper and then, and ripped it off and put it into, a compartment in the client. So what do you prefer? I mean, obviously anything is legal or acceptable, but I mean, if you log into a system and you can scroll through a big plan and you're known with the system, and it's probably so much easier, isn't it? Because I know some people are still, no digital technology for me, but is it isn't it there just positive arguments pro digital tools in that area at least?
No, clear answer, no. I had that this week where they had a new computer and it didn't work everything, and so it was quite a nightmare to get all
there you go.
information. But no, the point is, I don't mind. I have no problem with paper. I have no problem with digital. So everything is fine. The only thing is, always think about what is if the server is down, if you have technical problems to get the documentation, and this might end really be a delicate situation in an audit. It's a one-day audit, and if you can't show the evidence that your pest control system is working, it's not a good situation for me, because I can understand it's a technical problem and they should have all the things. But if the client can't show that, it's not the best case. But theoretically we are fine with everything, but it needs to be working, or redundant system, or whatever, secured. But generally I agree. The digital ones are good. If you have the map, you have the point, the let's say the rodent bait station, you have the technician who controlled it. You click on the technician, you see the training certificates and his license. You click on the station and you get the history of the consumption, and you get what pesticide is inside.
Safety data.
Perfect. It's really a good thing. But it's important that it works properly, and then it's a big help for sure, compared to paper flipping around. But that's also fine.
Maybe also a combination, having choose whatever you want to, obviously, as long as it's legal. But sometimes, maybe it would make sense to have a convenient system, but then do a safety copy every here and then, and maybe do print out the last service report, which is always available as a PDF as well, printable. So I think that's probably the best of both worlds to ensure that you always get the 200 points, right? Good. So Thomas, sorry.
I had a question, and I thought about that. Do you see any new developments where you would say, what could be also a point influence our standards to say, these are new technologies which are coming, take that into account in an update of your standard? Is there anything else what you are working on at the moment or in the future?
Yeah, so you probably know already most of the things that we are working on, but I can see a couple of trends very clearly. So first of all, humaneness, using the humane products, which is driven by, in Europe or worldwide, mainly by Germany, by the German Environmental Government Agency, Umweltbundesamt. And there is an initiative which is called Nocero, and with Nocero we are forming and testing traps, and not just a snap trap, but all kinds of trap products and solutions, and assess them with the same complex information as a rodenticide is tested, which is very costly and involves field testing, lab testing, humaneness testing and that's a big part. And I think in the next couple of years, this is going to set a trend, because currently a trap is a trap. Everybody can use a trap of Amazon or a trap from a professional shop. It's no difference. And I think in future, also like other standards, they will look onto, is that trap certified? Is the synthetic bait certified and allergen-free? Allergens are a high topic in food industry, obviously. So that's a huge trend as well. And I do think that in the next couple of years, the environmentalists and a large part of the professional industry are going to try to, again, limit for good the use of chemicals, because they fear that our industry, speaking for SIPA now, as SIPA, our European industry is fighting to make a professional pest manager professional, because he is respected like a doctor or like a nurse, but we're currently not. So the European Association is working for it, because they fear that a professional can only be viewed as a professional because he's able to use chemicals. Whereas we want to move to a certain point in the future where a professional is a professional and he can use chemicals. And so maybe that's going to be a trend to work with the IPM principles again for good, more effectively, and use alternatives a lot more than chemicals if we can, because IPM is a huge trend also within our European Federation, and we've all signed a paper as a memorandum of understanding for IPM. So probably being greener, having more humane certified traps, and with obviously all digital helpers. In future, we will not only have rodent traps that can be controlled, we will have cockroach and ant traps and flying insect traps, and all of this in a very small device that's taking pictures every day at least, or in a second. And we're going to have algorithms and artificial intelligence, which we already have and are working on, that assimilate the data and recognize whether there is something in it or not. Because now a pest controller has to drive to station 214, open up the station. Yes, it's a mouse. No, it's not a mouse. And with obviously a camera, you can say from your smart hub in Berlin City, I don't know where, in Buenos Aires even, you can sit there, open up your dashboard, and you can see you have a cockroach at the supermarket A, you have a Oriental or German cockroach, or you have a, I don't know, Rattus or Rattus norvegicus in a rat box. And that's going to be a digital surveillance in every pest type that we have in every box 24/7. And this also helps again to reduce the amount of toxins being used. So to sum up, more digital products that are going to be better. In the end, the pest control industry is not Apple or Google, so limited budget. It's taking longer, but there's going to be the iPhone, probably a camera in pest control as well. Humaneness, certified traps for sure, and more monitoring in IPM. I think that's the clear trend.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Okay.
So, question right back at you. First of all, maybe a reaction. Do you agree? Do you think that could be true?
No, that's fine, and I think this might help us again to improve. Yeah, in the rodent thing. Yeah, I think we are already quite good, but as you said, cockroach and so on, this is much more on a monthly basis where you do checks and so on. And that could help, if you get quicker information. That's always the point. As soon as you have information, you can react and you can take measurements against it. And that's the important point. And cockroaches are quite delicate because they're very fast. And we know that they are more or less, you can say, always carrying pathogens, and that's the point. They are so dangerous.
Right back at you, what's going to be the trend for AIB? What is the future for AIB? Where do you see the standard in 5 to 10 years? What are going to be big impacts, especially in pest control?
That's a good question, but I think it's going in the same direction from a general perspective to still work on this subject, pest control as a core part of the standard. I assume I'm not working on the update of the standard. That's in the pipeline, but I would doubt that my colleagues would remove the chapter because it's not important anymore. That's really an important point, and it's part of our philosophy and culture we have. And improve these systems and to adapt that to new requirements, legal requirements, to new trends, and also pressure from NGOs to say, you need to go more to non-tox products. So, but always keeping in mind to control the pest level to ensure the safe food. I think that's the baseline we have, and all around can be done in different ways. But this is the prerequisite part, what's non-negotiable.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's a perfect ending to again, very, very fun interview, I gotta admit. So Thomas, hey, it's been loads of fun. We've almost spent 50 minutes roundabout for the interview. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure for me also to take that opportunity to present a bit AIB and to speak about the life of an auditor.
The life of an auditor sounds like a book you need to write someday.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
I think you could. Yeah, we should open up an episode, speak about just the fun stories.
Oh yeah.
No, anyways, what I wanted to say in behalf of our industry, our company, just thank you for doing what you do, because I don't know if you recognize how much you actually do influence our industry to a better. Sometimes it's like, putting your finger into a spot that hurts a little bit, but it makes us better. So everybody I talk about in our industry, I highly respect AIB. Everybody in our industry thinks a lot of the good things happening in our industry are also partially because of you and other standards that help us to get better in the pest control industry. Because you know yourself, if you're in a comfy spot, you don't change anything, and change is always very stressful sometimes, so people avoid it. But you pushed us, so on behalf of our industry, thanks AIB for existing. You rock.
Thanks, you're welcome. Good to hear that.
Yeah.